Has your own grandmother bought yet another one of those miracle magnets for her dodgy knees? Or maybe you, flipping through a catalogue yourself, have wondered, what if that shiny bracelet actually does work? We're talking about those magnetic joint supports. They're sold everywhere. High street chemists, TV shopping channels, market stalls. They promise to banish arthritis pain, boost circulation, and get you moving again. But what are they really? A breakthrough technology doctors are trying to keep secret, or just one of the biggest cons in the history of, well, let's call it fringe health remedies? Today, we are going to conduct a full investigation. We'll look inside the science labs, read the studies the salespeople won't show you, and finally, give you a clear answer. Are magnetic supports a genuine aid, or just a powerful placebo effect? I promise you, by the end of this video, you won't have any doubts left. Now, before we dive into the modern research, let's take a quick trip back in time. The idea of using magnets to treat illness is certainly nothing new. Even in ancient Egypt and Greece, healers used natural magnets, believing they held mystical power. Hippocrates, the father of medicine, wrote about their supposed anti-inflammatory effects. Later, during the Middle Ages, the famous physician Paracelsus claimed magnets could actually draw out diseases from the body. But the real boom happened in the 18th century, thanks to the Austrian doctor Franz Mesmer. He developed a whole theory of animal magnetism, claiming the universe was filled with an invisible fluid, and illness came from this fluid being wrongly distributed in the body. Mesmer would hold sessions, waving magnets over his patients, and enjoyed astonishing success. Although his theory was later completely discredited as pseudoscience, the powerful idea of magnets as a healing force stuck around. It has lasted right up to the present day, morphing into the multi-billion-pound industry we see now. Right then, what exactly are they promising us today? Just open up any website selling those magnetic bracelets, insoles, or knee supports, and you'll find a whole list of miraculous claims. The manufacturers insist their products can relieve pain, reduce inflammation, speed up tissue recovery, and even improve your sleep. The big selling point, the real kicker, is improved blood circulation. They tell us the magnetic field supposedly interacts with the ions in your blood, making the red blood cells move quicker and more efficiently deliver oxygen to the areas that need healing. Sounds dreadfully scientific and utterly convincing, doesn't it? The adverts frequently use animated videos showing red blood cells, which were all stuck together in little clumps, suddenly scattering cheerfully under the magnet's influence and whizzing off. It creates a powerful visual image, something that really sticks in your mind. For any consumer suffering from chronic pain and completely fed up with popping pills, such a simple and supposedly safe solution seems like a genuine salvation. But let's just stop for a moment and ask ourselves the critical question. Is there any shred of genuine scientific basis beneath this very attractive picture? Let's take a closer look at the so-called scientific mechanism that these vendors promote. The core idea rests on the interaction between the magnet and the iron found in our blood. As we all learned back in school, hemoglobin, the protein in red blood cells that carries oxygen, contains iron. The vendor's logic is straightforward. If there's iron, the magnet must affect it, either attracting or repelling it, thus improving blood flow or thinning the blood. However, this is where a fundamental error lies, one which the marketers either genuinely misunderstand or conveniently fail to mention. The iron in hemoglobin is bound within the heme group and possesses what are known as paramagnetic properties. To put it simply, it reacts very, very weakly to a magnetic field. It is so weak that to achieve any noticeable effect, you would need a magnet tens of thousands of times stronger than anything sold in a bracelet. We're talking about the sort of power used in an MRI scanner, for instance. If these bracelet magnets genuinely had such a strong effect on our blood, then undergoing an MRI scan would be lethally dangerous. Yet as we know, this is certainly not the case. Therefore, the key claim that magnets boost blood circulation simply does not align with the established laws of physics and biology. Right, perhaps it's not the iron after all. Some proponents of magnetic therapy talk about the magnets affecting ions or nerve impulses, or even those so-called energy meridians. But here we are definitely stepping onto the very shaky ground of pseudoscience. Science, as of yet, hasn't actually located any of these energy meridians in the human body. Now, regarding nerve impulses, yes, those are electrical signals, and theoretically, a strong, alternating magnetic field could influence them. But this brings us to a very important distinction. We're dealing with two completely different types of magnet therapy. The first type involves static magnets, that is, those standard permanent little magnets that you find stitched into bracelets and belts. Their field is constant and never changes. The second type is pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, often abbreviated as PEMF therapy. This uses specific medical devices that generate variable, pulsating electromagnetic fields. This method is genuinely used in official medicine, for example, to help accelerate the healing of fractures. But that is a complex physiotherapy procedure, and it has absolutely nothing to do with simply wearing a magnet on your wrist. The sellers of these bracelets often deliberately conflate these two concepts, giving buyers the false impression that their simple product has proven medical effectiveness. How does modern medicine decide if a new drug or treatment actually works? Well, there's a gold standard for this. It's called a double-blind, placebo-controlled study. That sounds complicated, doesn't it? But the basic idea is quite straightforward. Researchers take a large group of patients who all suffer from the same condition. One half is given the real medication, and the other half gets a dummy pill, what we call a placebo. This placebo looks exactly like the real drug, but contains no active ingredients. Now here's the clever bit. Neither the patients themselves, nor the doctors administering the trial, know who is receiving the real drug and who is receiving the placebo until the very end. That's why we call it the double-blind method. This is crucial because it eliminates psychological factors, things like the patient's strong belief in a cure, or any potential bias from the treating physician. Once the study is finished, scientists compare the results from both groups. If the group taking the actual medicine shows significantly better improvement than the placebo group, then we know the drug genuinely works. Any treatment claiming medical effectiveness, even something like magnetic bracelets, must pass this rigorous test to truly prove its worth. And yes, proper research into this sort of thing has certainly been done. Dozens of times, in fact. If you had to sum up the findings in a single word, it would be disappointing. Let's take a look at one of the most famous and largest trials. This was carried out in 2009 by academics at the University of York, right here in the UK. They recruited nearly 200 patients suffering from osteoarthritis and split them into 4 groups. One group was given genuine magnetic bracelets. The second group wore bracelets with very weak magnets. The third group were given demagnetized bracelets. That's the placebo or dummy group. And the fourth group didn't wear any bracelets at all. The trial lasted 12 weeks. Throughout that time, patients regularly assessed how bad their pain was using a special rating scale. And what was the final conclusion? Well, the researchers found absolutely no meaningful statistical difference in pain levels between the group wearing the strong, genuine magnets and the group wearing the dud bracelets. Crucially, while some patients in all 4 groups felt better, the improvement was exactly the same across the board. This clearly indicates that the improvement wasn't caused by the magnetic field itself, but was purely down to the expectation effect. Magnet therapy advocates might well pipe up and say, but what about all those other studies that did show positive results? And, to be fair, those pieces of research certainly exist. For instance, there's a widely quoted 2004 study carried out at the Peninsula Medical School in the UK. It involved 194 patients suffering from osteoarthritis of the hip or knee. The findings suggested that the group wearing the magnetic bracelets saw their pain reduced by an average of 3 points on the scale, compared to just 1.5 points for the placebo group. You might think, aha, proof at last. But the devil, as they say, is always in the details. Firstly, the authors themselves concluded that while the observed effect was statistically significant, it was actually very small, and its clinical benefit remained unclear. Secondly, they hypothesized that the result might simply be down to the placebo effect. Why? Because the participants could potentially guess whether they were wearing a real magnet or not. Crucially, later, more stringent studies, which employed much better placebo control, failed to replicate these findings. This, rather unfortunately, casts a serious cloud of doubt over the original paper. When numerous studies on a single topic accumulate, especially those with conflicting results, researchers often perform what is known as a meta-analysis. They meticulously bring together all the high-quality research and analyze the combined data. This approach provides the most objective and balanced assessment possible. One of the most highly respected organizations in this field is the Cochrane Collaboration. Their systematic reviews are widely considered the gold standard or the highest level of evidence-based medicine. Back in 2013, and subsequently updated, Cochrane published a comprehensive systematic review. This looked at all the relevant randomized controlled trials concerning the use of static magnets to treat osteoarthritis. Their verdict was unambiguous and distinctly unhelpful for the manufacturers of these magnet therapies. To quote their precise conclusion, the available evidence does not support the use of static magnets for reducing pain in osteoarthritis. Put simply, this extensive analysis of the best scientific data revealed that these magnets work no better than wearing a simple piece of non-magnetic metal, or perhaps a simple placebo. This remains the single most robust scientific argument against their effectiveness. But wait a minute, if all the research says these magnets don't work, why are millions of people around the world absolutely swearing they've helped them? My neighbour, my aunt, my old friend, they can't all be mistaken. Are they all just making it up? No, of course not. And their pain really has probably diminished. The reason for this is one of the most surprising and mysterious phenomena in all of medicine, the placebo effect. Now, a lot of folks think that the placebo effect is just all in your head, nothing serious, maybe just self-suggestion. But that is a massive misunderstanding. The placebo effect is a real, measurable psychophysiological response the body has when it expects treatment. When a person genuinely believes they are taking an effective cure, their brain starts producing its own natural painkillers, endorphins. These substances are similar in effect to something like morphine. They genuinely block those pain signals and bring true relief. This isn't just imagination, it's the chemistry of our own body working hard. So, when someone slips on a lovely, expensive bracelet that they truly believe in, their brain can absolutely trigger this mechanism and genuinely lessen the sensation of pain. The strength of the placebo effect is quite frankly gobsmacking, especially when we're talking about pain relief. Pain isn't just a physical sensation, mind you. It has a hugely powerful emotional component too. How we actually perceive pain is hugely dependent on our mood, what we expect to happen, and crucially, what we believe. Studies using functional MRI scanning, those fancy brain scans, have actually shown that taking a placebo activates the exact same brain regions responsible for controlling pain as proper, real painkillers do. It's the whole ritual that matters. Buying the therapeutic device, carefully unwrapping it, and putting it on every day. All of that builds up a massive expectation of feeling better. Furthermore, the more expensive and scientific-looking a placebo appears, the greater its impact. A lovely bit of packaging, a complicated set of instructions, and a high price tag. All of that solidifies the patient's belief, and consequently boosts their body's response. This is why that magnetic bracelet you bought for, say 30 quid, is highly likely to help you more than a plain old fridge magnet, even though, from a physics standpoint, their effect is absolutely identical, which is to say, zero. Manufacturers, whether they realize it or not, are actively exploiting this powerful psychological mechanism. Right, so we've established the key point. Magnetic bracelets simply don't have scientific backing. Any benefit people feel is almost certainly down to the good old placebo effect. But if that's the case, why is this belief still so incredibly strong? Well, the simple answer is that we fall victim to a few key psychological traps. The first and most common is called confirmation bias. Our brains are naturally wired to seek out and notice information that supports what we already believe, while completely ignoring anything that might contradict it. Think about it this way. If someone buys a magnetic bracelet and genuinely believes in its power, they'll pay close attention to the days when they feel an improvement, immediately thinking, there we are, the bracelet worked. But on the days when the pain inevitably comes back, or perhaps even gets worse, they simply find another explanation. They might say, the weather must be changing, or I must have just overdone it yesterday. They will not connect this deterioration to the bracelet being ineffective, because doing so would completely shatter their core belief. In this way, a fundamentally distorted picture of reality is constructed in their mind, where the bracelet appears to be genuinely and consistently helping them. The second main reason why people swear by the effectiveness of magnets comes down to the very nature of chronic illnesses, particularly things like arthritis. As anyone dealing with these conditions knows, the pain rarely stays constant. It tends to ebb and flow. You get periods of painful flare-ups, followed by periods where the symptoms naturally calm down. Now picture this common scenario. Someone is suffering intense pain. It's reached its absolute peak. In this moment of desperation, they decide to try something new, perhaps purchasing a magnetic bracelet. What happens next is precisely what was bound to happen, even without the bracelet. The pain, having hit its maximum point, naturally starts to subside. This predictable statistical phenomenon is known as regression to the mean. But of course, the user doesn't attribute this improvement to the natural cycle of the illness. Instead, they credit the new, miracle cure they just started wearing. That positive experience becomes firmly cemented in their memory as proof the bracelet worked. They will confidently recommend it to others, thus starting a whole chain reaction of belief. But there's also another factor, a much more down-to-earth psychological trick at play: cognitive dissonance and the justification of sunk costs. When you spend money on something, especially a good chunk of cash, it's incredibly hard, psychologically speaking, to admit that the purchase was actually useless. That creates a real conflict inside. To resolve it, our brain immediately starts looking for ways to justify the expense. It goes something like this: I spent £100 on this bracelet, so it must be working. I think my knee genuinely feels a bit less painful. Yes, absolutely. That was a worthwhile investment in my health. This is a subconscious process of self-deception. It simply helps us feel better about the decision we made. The more that magnet cost, the stronger the urge to justify the purchase becomes, and the more actively a person will try to convince both themselves and everyone around them that it's genuinely effective. This is precisely why people who buy the most expensive, heavily advertised models often end up becoming their most passionate and vocal defenders. Right, let's assume for a moment that these magnets are useless, but are they at least harmless? And for the most part, that is absolutely true. Wearing a standard static magnet on the body is generally considered perfectly safe for the majority of us. However, there are vital exceptions here. Anyone fitted with a pacemaker, a defibrillator, an insulin pump, or any other implanted electronic device must, categorically, avoid using magnets. A strong magnetic field can interfere with these essential life-saving devices, potentially leading to serious and unwelcome health consequences. They are also not recommended for pregnant women, purely due to the lack of sufficient data regarding safety for the developing baby. The primary danger of these magnets, however, is an indirect one. By focusing too much on this sort of alternative treatment, people might be tempted to put off visiting their doctor or avoid genuinely proven therapies. Meanwhile, their underlying condition will simply progress unchecked. The real danger of believing in these miracle magnets is the precious time that is ultimately wasted. Right, let's take a closer look at how these devices are actually marketed. It's an entire industry, you see, built squarely upon people's pain and, crucially, their desperate hope. The main targets are generally older folk, pensioners if you like, and those suffering from chronic illnesses. In short, the most vulnerable groups amongst us. Now, the advertising itself employs some terribly clever, often dodgy, techniques. Firstly, they rely heavily on that baffling pseudo-scientific jargon. Things like biomagnetic field, ionic balance, or resonance therapy. These terms might sound awfully impressive and solid, but in this context, they are utterly meaningless scientifically. Secondly, there's the relentless use of testimonials. You'll always find dozens of glowing, enthusiastic stories on their websites, supposedly from real people, all claiming that this magnetic bracelet completely changed their lives. These kinds of personal anecdotes tug at the heartstrings far more effectively than any amount of dry scientific facts ever could. And thirdly, they often drop names, references to celebrities or supposedly top athletes who allegedly use these magnets. It's purely designed to create an aura of prestige and proven effectiveness. The whole kit and caboodle, this entire marketing machine, is geared towards sidestepping your critical thinking, pushing straight past logic, and appealing purely to your emotions and that deep-seated desire we all have to believe in a miracle cure. If those magnetic bracelets aren't helping, what should we be doing about joint pain? Thankfully, modern medicine offers plenty of methods that are proven to work. And honestly, they're often much simpler than you might think. First, and most importantly, is movement. It sounds paradoxical, but when dealing with joint pain, the best medicine is the right kind of physical activity. Gentle, targeted exercises, physiotherapy programs, swimming, and even yoga are fantastic. They strengthen the muscles surrounding the joint, improve its overall health, and significantly reduce discomfort. Secondly, managing your weight. Every extra pound puts an enormous strain on your leg joints and spine. Losing just 5 or 10% of your current weight can make a massive difference in how much pain you feel. Third, look into professional physiotherapy. Clinical techniques like ultrasound, laser therapy, and yes, even pulse magnetic therapy performed in a clinic using specialist equipment can offer real, tangible relief. Unlike those gadgets you might buy online, these professional methods are genuinely backed by scientific evidence. Beyond the physical therapies, we mustn't overlook medication, though this must strictly be guided by your GP or consultant. There are plenty of effective and safe anti-inflammatory medications available, both to take orally and in the form of creams or gels. These are brilliant for managing a flare-up and helping you get back to your usual routine. Another key element is the use of chondroprotectors. These are supplements designed to help protect and potentially repair cartilage tissue. Now, while their overall effectiveness is still a topic of debate among experts, they certainly have a far more serious scientific grounding than using things like magnetic bracelets. We shouldn't forget the importance of proper diet either. A diet rich in omega-3 fatty acids, found in oily fish and flaxseed oil, as well as plenty of antioxidants from vegetables, fruits and berries, and natural collagen from bone broths, can actively help keep inflammation down across the whole body. The main takeaway here is that there is a full, comprehensive plan that genuinely works. Unlike the simple approach of wearing a bracelet, this treatment requires effort and discipline. But the key difference is that the results you get are genuine and lasting, not just wishful thinking. Let's revisit the topic of pulse magnetic therapy, shall we? We need to clarify exactly what it is and isn't to set the record straight once and for all. This treatment, known internationally as PEMF, or pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, uses alternating, pulsating energy fields rather than steady, static ones. These fields are delivered at a very specific frequency and intensity. Studies demonstrate that these precise fields can stimulate the cells responsible for regenerating bone and cartilage, and crucially, they have proven anti-inflammatory benefits. This is precisely why proper PEMF machines are utilized in hospitals and rehabilitation centers to speed up the healing of serious fractures and for the complex treatment of conditions like arthritis and arthrosis. But, and this is crucial, the key word here is machines. These are sophisticated medical instruments designed to generate fields with precisely calibrated parameters. A tiny static magnet the kind you might find in a bracelet or an insole, is simply physically incapable of creating this type of sophisticated field. It's genuinely like comparing the light from a simple candle to the light from a powerful laser. They are both technically light, but their properties, strength, and therapeutic capabilities are worlds apart. Therefore, whenever a seller of magnetic bracelets tries to claim the clinical successes of professional magnetic therapy, you know it is nothing short of outright manipulation. Let's think about another angle here, the idea of psychological freedom. When we rely too heavily on something external, be it a fancy bracelet, a lucky charm, or even a specific pill, we are essentially handing over control of our health to that object. This immediately creates dependence. We start hearing ourselves say things like, "Oh, I'm in pain because I forgot my special band," or "I'll only feel better once I fork out the money for that specific thing." That sort of thinking robs us of an active role in managing our own bodies, and being active, taking that personal initiative, is absolutely the key to managing long-term, chronic pain successfully. When you truly realise that your well-being stems from your own actions, from that morning stretch, choosing sensible foods, or simply making time to rest properly, that's when you actually take charge of your life. Moving away from believing in magic pills and miracle cures, those dodgy, magnetic gadgets, and instead choosing real, scientifically proven methods, well, that's much more than just picking effective treatment. It's a profound step towards a more mindful and responsible relationship with your own body and health. It's about putting the power and the control firmly back where it belongs, in your own hands. It's quite amusing, isn't it? Even in the realm of professional sport, where results are supposedly dictated entirely by science and rigorous training, this whole magnet myth remains incredibly prevalent. You see numerous well-known athletes sporting these magnetic necklaces and wristbands. Naturally, the marketers immediately jump on this phenomenon as proof of their efficacy. But the real explanation, when you think about it, is rather straightforward. Elite sport involves tremendous stress and truly punishing physical demands. Athletes, perhaps more than most people, are highly susceptible to rituals and superstitions. Whether it's their lucky socks or a specific, rigid routine they must follow before a competition, it all serves to manage crippling anxiety. For many, that magnetic wristband simply becomes another talisman, another comfort blanket. The conviction that it aids recovery or somehow wards off injury provides a huge psychological boost, which crucially can genuinely affect performance. What we are witnessing here is simply the placebo effect, wrapped up rather neatly in expensive sporting attire. Let's be clear, not a single robust, peer-reviewed study has ever demonstrated that wearing these magnets measurably improves athletic metrics, be it strength, endurance, or the speed of recovery. Not one. Let's wrap up our investigation and draw our final conclusion. Those static magnets, the ones you see sold as bracelets, belts, insoles, and jewellery, have absolutely no proven clinical effectiveness for treating joint pain, or frankly, any other ailment. Their supposed mechanism, which claims to boost circulation, simply doesn't hold up under basic scrutiny from physics or biology. Numerous high-quality scientific studies, including the highly respected Cochrane reviews, have consistently shown that their effect is nothing more than pure placebo. Why do millions believe in their healing power? Well, that's down to the powerful placebo effect, common psychological traps like confirmation bias, and crucially, the fact that chronic illnesses often get better on their own anyway. While they are generally harmless for most people, they can pose a genuine danger to anyone with electronic implants. More importantly, they distract sufferers from effective, real treatments, leading to the crucial loss of precious time. To put it simply, a magnetic bracelet is nothing more than an expensive but highly convincing placebo generator. So what's the ultimate takeaway from this story? The whole saga of joint magnets is a classic illustration of how hope, coupled with slick marketing and a lack of critical scrutiny, can generate a multi-billion-pound industry that is essentially selling thin air. The biggest twist in this entire story is that these magnets do seem to work for some people. But what's actually working isn't the magnetic field. It is your own deeply held belief in the healing process. It's the astonishing power of the brain to influence the body. The placebo effect is real, absolutely. But should you really be shelling out hundreds of pounds for a useless piece of metal just to activate it? You can trigger this exact same mechanism through far more honest and beneficial routes, through simple meditation, maintaining a genuinely positive outlook, and, most importantly, by relying on treatments whose effectiveness has been robustly proven by science. Don't allow yourself to be misled by appealing promises. Look after your joints properly. Trust evidence-based medicine and your own inner resources, rather than these pseudoscientific gadgets. Thank you for watching this video right to the end. If you found this information useful, please do hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next investigation. Now, a question for you. Have you or any of your loved ones ever tried magnetic bracelets or similar products? What was your experience? Please share your story in the comments below. Let's discuss it.